1 minute away.
We are ready to begin when you are. We are ready to begin.
Gentlemen, and good morning, and welcome to the California High-Speed Rail Authority's Board of Directors meeting for September 26, 24. Thank you for joining us in the room, and those of you who have joined us from around the state, welcome. We'll now call the meeting to order, and please call the roll.
Director Schenk. Here. Chair Richards.
Here.
Director Camacho. Vice Chair Miller. Assembly Member Arambula. Director Perea.
Here.
Director Gilmetti.
Present.
Director Escutia. Director Williams.
Here.
Senator Gonzalez. Director Cohen. Here. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. And if I can, Director Perea, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience and those around listening or watching, I'm proud to introduce with our board members our new Chief Executive Officer, Ian Chaudhry, sitting to my left. As you know, we had a pretty, I don't usually use this word, robust process that we went through. It took a number of months, but we are all very pleased that Mr. Chaudhry has joined us as our CEO. I'm not going to embarrass him by telling you a whole lot about his background, but I think he's grown up with trains from a young age, certainly has taken them on as a big passion through his adult life, whether it be from the Channel over in Europe, as well as other high-speed rail and associated businesses, including train set manufacturing, and has had kind of a scratching relationship at one point with this project several years ago. But I can tell you one thing, we are looking for great things from our new CEO, and with the length and breadth of experience in building and operations of high-speed rail around the world. So welcome from all 9 of us. That's all he wants. Oh, do you want to say something?
No, thanks. You did the introduction properly for me. Just to say thank you. I'm really excited and honored to be leading this organization, and I'm looking forward to working with our own employees, partners and stakeholders in public, and also our industry to get this done. I'm hitting the ground running, I know that, and I think there's a lot to do. So thank you. Yeah.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will now start our public comment, and we'll ask our secretary to advise those in the room and those around the state how they can address us. Yeah, I'll do that right after that. I'll do that before this. I was going to do it later, but I'll do what you suggest. All right, thank you. We also have a guest in the audience, Juan Carrillo, who is Assembly Member from Assembly District 39, Palmdale. Welcome. Thank you, Mr. Assembly Member. I can also say a very strong report, our supporter of this project back in those days when I think at the City of Palmdale Planning Director. He was an amazing person to work with, and we're very happy that you're up here and working in the Assembly and taking a direct role in where this project goes. Thank you, Mr. Assembly Member. With that, we will now move on to agenda item number 1, which is consideration of our June 26, 27 board meeting minutes.
Tom, can we do public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. I did this again. All right. Moving on with public comments. Please, anybody in the room?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Before we begin public comment for the California High-Speed Rail Board of Directors meeting, I would like to review some important information. For members of the public who have joined us in person and wish to provide public comment, you will be called on in the order we received your card. If you are joining the meeting via Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please use the raise your hand feature located at the bottom of the app. If you are dialing in by phone, pressing the number 2 will raise your hand and put you into the queue. Speakers will be called on in the order their hands are raised. Once you're in the queue and your name is called, please click the prompt on your screen to allow your microphone to be unmuted. If you are joining by phone, we will call on your last 4 digits of your phone number. At that point, you will hear a message that your phone is being unmuted. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes to speak, and I will remind you when you have 15 seconds remaining. When it is your turn to speak, please slowly and clearly say your first and last name, and if applicable, please state the organization you are representing. Mr. Chair, we will begin with in-person speakers. Our first speaker is C. Lee.
Good morning, Ms. Lee, and welcome.
Good morning, thank you. In 10 years, I want to be a mechanic because everyone in my family was a mechanic. And my cousin, Smog's car, my dad, grandma, grandpa, cousin, uncle, and my mom, they all have nice cars. I also want to have nice cars and fix up my car by myself. I also want to have my bus, my business local. I'm going to work in Vallejo, California in the Bay Area, Isaac. In 10 years, I want to be a nurse. I hope I work as a school nurse. And I love helping people in the school, Charles Wright, in the office. I want to go to college in a different city in Florida, Aaliyah. Dear my future self, I want to be a lawyer. One reason I want to be a lawyer is because I want to help people in court because they are in jail, even though they are innocent. And I want to fight for their rights. Good morning, general public, board of directors, and welcome, Mr. Chowdhury. My name is C. Lee. I'm the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club in Merced County. These are the dreams and aspirations of our young people that we get to serve every single day. And today I am here once again to ask for your support and ensuring that the impact of the high-speed rail to our direct location, that we have a plan and that our organization, the Boys and Girls Club, will be relocated to a place to continue to serve our families and community for the next 30+ years. I am here today because, and I want to thank the high-speed rail staff and consultants for their genuine support for the
15
club in the
seconds.
last months. But I will tell you, $50,000 in relocation fund will not do justice for us. We are asking for you to do more. We trust that you can do more, and we hope that you will. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lee.
Our next speaker is Peggy Shu.
Good morning, Ms. Xu, and welcome.
Good morning. I represent the Boys and Girls Club of Merced County also. For over 30 years, we have been a second home to countless children and families, providing support to hundreds of youth daily, children who rely on us. As Merced stands on the brink of significant change, the high-speed rail promises progress and growth for the entire state. We believe in and support this vision. However, with progress comes a responsibility to ensure that our community, especially our youth, are not left behind. In the past, transportation projects have come at a steep social cost, redlining and dividing marginalized communities. In Merced and across the Central Valley, we still see the scars left by the construction of Highway 99, which divided neighborhoods and disrupted lives. We must learn from the past. With high-speed rail, you have the chance to do things right from the start, creating a future where progress and preservation go hand in hand, valuing our community's heart and soul as much as the tracks that will soon run through it. The High-Speed Rail Authority is acquiring the youth center we've called home for over 22 years. At a time when the need for youth services is only growing, our programs are now at risk. The relocation assistance offered so far does not reflect the real financial, operational, and social costs we face. Without adequate help, we risk closing our doors, leaving hundreds of children without the vital services they depend on. Today, we are requesting a meeting with the high-speed rail staff to discuss the real financial support needed to ensure our community is not left in a worse position. We require relocation assistance that reflects the actual costs of this disruption, going beyond arbitrarily set limits so that we can continue serving Merced's youth as we have since 1993.
15 seconds.
We urge you to work with us to ensure that this project is a win-win for all and that no community is left behind. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Xu.
Mr. Chair, we have no more public comment in person, and we will now move to Zoom participants. Once again, if you're joining the meeting via Zoom and wish to provide public comment, please use the raise your hand feature located at the bottom of your screen. Mr. Chair, first commenter is Ray Lynn.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Cool. Good morning. California High-Speed Rail Authority Board of Directors and members of the public. My name is Ray, and thank you for the opportunity for me to make a quick public comment. I've been a Californian all my life, and I am also a train enthusiast, I would consider myself. So I'm super excited about the California HSR project. I remember as a kid hearing about our high-speed rail proposition passing, and I've been looking forward ever since to be able to go from San Francisco all the way to LA in under 3 hours. First, thank you for your continued work on this project. However, I hope with the Olympics being hosted in LA and with most of the environmental review process behind us, that we can get a renewed urgency to complete this project ahead of schedule if possible and make a debut while we have some extra international attention. I hope you are talking with the governor and other officials from the federal, state, and local levels to get more support and political willpower to complete this project. I believe that if we really wanted to do it, we can definitely focus and finish it early. Second, I hope that you have reached out to other heads of high-speed rail authorities to get their insights and experiences from building and running their networks. Instead of spending millions on consulting companies who do not have real-world experience of actually running and seeing ridership experience, we should engage in other leaders in this field and learn from their mistakes and successes. Finally, if there is the opportunity, I'd like to offer to help make chimes or jingles for one or many of the stations and the train. I think a big part of commuting in the trains is that the train station and on-train chimes. For
15
example,
seconds.
in Japan, each line and station has their unique songs. Thank you again for the opportunity to make a public comment. I hope we continue to have success in the project, and I look forward to writing the HSR.
Thank you, Randy.
Our next speaker is Roland.
Good morning again, Mr. Laban. Mr. Laban?
Hello again. This echo is not coming from me. Okay. Hello again, Chair Richards and board members. Let me start by extending a very warm welcome to Mr. Chaudhry. Welcome to the party. The second thing I'd like to do is to reiterate the comments I made at the Finance and Audit Committee, that this project initially started with a budget of $24 billion, which included $4 billion in contingency, or 20%, which seemed generous at the time. And what's happening now is that we've expended $13.1 billion. But out of that $13.1 billion, we have burned $5.5 billion in contingency. So if you do the math, we're currently running at 41.8% contingency, not 20%. And the concern here is that most of these $5.5 billion in change orders are coming in at $25 million or below, which means they don't require board approval. So in closing, I'm going to reiterate my request to, as soon as possible, refer the matter to the Inspector General with a report back to the board, hopefully by the next board meeting, or at least not later than the end of the year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, our next speaker is Jorge Luna Monterrey.
Good morning.
Good morning, board members. My name is George. I am representing Valley Voices and our communities of Kings and Tulare County. And we are asking for the high-speed rail to provide more opportunities for community engagement, especially for working class folks and especially farm workers here in the Central Valley, Hispanic and Latinos, communities that we would like to be more engaged as part of this process. We understand and we support the vision of the high-speed rail. However, we want to ensure that our communities are represented in the vision of the high-speed rail. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
At this time, we have no other attendees that would like to provide public comment.
Nobody else? Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your comments. We'll now move into today's agenda. Item number 1 being to consider the minutes of June 26, 27. We have a motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Director Schenk,
Yes.
Chair Richards, Director Camacho,
Yes.
Director Perea, Director Gilmetti, Director Williams,
Aye.
Director Cohen.
Aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you. On today's agenda, item number 2 is the Northern California Regional Update, and our director from up there, Boris Lipkin. Good morning, Boris.
Good morning, Chair Richards and members of the board. I'm Boris Lipkin. I'm the Northern California Regional Director, and I'll give the update on our work in Northern California over the past year. I was last before the board last August, and so the focus for today is really what's happened in our region since that time. So just to start off, if you can go to the next slide. What I'll be talking about is the work of this team. This is our Northern California team. So combined with our kind of outreach and communications folks, planning, rail, strategic delivery. This is whose work I'll be talking about. So I just want to make sure I give a little bit of credit to the folks working in our regional office in Northern California. Next slide, please. So when we talk about Northern California, what we're really talking about is the 159 miles of the system starting at Salesforce Transit Center in San Francisco and going out to the Central Valley Y in Merced County. This was something that we had put together in the 2024 business plan for kind of giving a snapshot of the overall status of the system in the region, as well as what our next steps and goals were for this year. And so we have finished all of our environmental clearance work. I think the board knows that. We're ready to begin the next stages of advanced design. We have the Caltrain electrification project that is electrifying 51 miles of the corridor already. And we have a series of shared corridor investments that we're engaged with partners. And so I'll give an update on all of that and what's happened since the business plan and where we see going next. So next slide, please. The first kind of couple of items I want to cover, these were important agreements that we reached with some of our key stakeholders just in the last few weeks. I'm glad I'm here in September, not in August, because these are settlement agreements that I wouldn't have been able to talk about, but now I can. And we announced these on Brian Kelly's last day, the agreements that we reached first with the City of Brisbane. With the City of Brisbane, they filed a CEQA lawsuit challenging our environmental document for the San Francisco to San Jose project section. The city had some substantial concerns with our light maintenance facility, which we had planned in their community. This is what was in our environmental document is shown on the right side. It's about a 100-acre facility, and it had approaches coming in and out from the north and the south that the city also had some big concerns with. We engaged with the city for the last 2 years since that environmental document was approved, and we ultimately reached a settlement. So if you go to the next slide, what we agreed to was the work that, first what we did was we redesigned the facility. And so on the chart on the right now, we have the city's land use plan underneath that they're considering. And you can see the dashed line. That was the former design, the original design of the facility that was in the environmental document. What we've done is we've shrunk the footprint by about 50 acres. And so we've brought it closer to the rail corridor. And what that's let us do is also change the approach tracks in and out of the facility and really addressed pretty much the entire list of concerns that the city had about the design of the facility itself. We also set out a path forward for as the city considers their land use on this site, and there's a big development project that's happening, as well, how we're going to work together on the integration between our project and the land use plans in the area. And then finally, we have important collaboration steps going forward. The city was very interested in the aesthetic design of the facility, and so we agreed to how they can engage with us during that. And an ongoing collaboration framework on how we pursue funding and how we advance both our project and their work on the site. Really kind of a new day and a new way of working with the city that was a big challenge. And they wrote us a 1,000-page comment letter on their environmental document, but we're now in a very different place, having reached this agreement and worked with them very closely over the last couple of years. Next slide, please. The second agreement that we reached, and I'm happy to report on, is with the Grassland Water District. This is in kind of going from the very northwest, where we were right by San Francisco. This is on the far eastern part of the alignment in the San Jose and Merced project section. But the Grassland Ecological Area is a series of wetland and other sensitive wildlife areas that host a variety of habitat and protected species and others. And the alignment, and you can see the line coming through, this is between sort of I-5 and 99, close to Los Banos. We come in and go through the area in two different places. The first one on the left, where you have the big purple blob, that is the Volta Wildlife Area, and close to the community of Volta. And then as we continue across, we cross the Grassland Ecological Area again, in close to Los Banos Wildlife Area or the Mud Slough area. And so the water district is a key stakeholder in this area. They've had longstanding interest in relationship with the authority on how we've designed the rail corridor going through these areas and how we can protect the habitat and important natural resources in the location. So we had a tolling agreement with the Water District since 2022 when we approved the San Jose to Merced environmental document. And just as with Brisbane, we just reached settlement with the Water District as well. So if we go to the next slide. The agreement that we have with the Water District, they agreed to waive their CEQA claims against the environmental document. We agreed to a series of additional enhancements and collaboration steps with them as we go forward. So first, in the Volta Wildlife Area, we agreed to extend the noise wall that we had planned there by about 2,500 feet. In the Mud Slough and Los Banos Wildlife Area, we agreed to investigate a shift of the bird enclosure that we have to protect birds from bird strike and endangered species. And then we also agreed to a series of restrictions on how we will construct in the area and consultation work with the Water District going forward as we advance in design and construction. Again, setting up a collaborative framework on the going forward basis for, as we advance the project, what their role is going to be in working with us as we move forward. Next slide, please. So those were really important agreements, I think, for resolving some past issues. On a going forward basis, when I was here last year, we had this slide up talking about our federal state partnership grant applications. And so I think the board is very well familiar with this. We applied for 2 different applications. The one on the left was focused on the next stages in the Central Valley, so procuring the trains, advancing the design and right-of-way. The one on the right is the one that, for Northern California and Southern California was the one that we were focused on, which was advancing the design for the next stretches out of the Central Valley, so San Jose to Merced and Bakersfield Palmdale, starting the geotechnical investigations. And so I think the board is aware, if you go to the next slide, the application 1 was funded and we received a $3 billion grant, which is huge and the largest grant that the authority has ever received, is really incredible effort to advance the Central Valley portion. Unfortunately, our application 2 was not funded at the time. And so this remains sort of the critical path for us in Northern California, is identifying the funding to begin this work as we look at moving the project forward. And so I know there's going to be another round of federal state grant applications that we might consider putting this forward again. But that's sort of the critical path. And, one of our goals for 2024 was getting into that advanced design stage. And, unless we identify the funding, that's going to have to wait a little bit longer. Next slide. So that's some key updates on our work in advancing the program in Northern California. I also want to talk about some of our partnerships and collaborations, because in our region, we have sort of the work that we're directly responsible for, and then we have really important partnerships that are helping advance components of the system, but together with local stakeholders and others. And so if you go to the next slide, the first one of those that I'm really excited to talk about is Caltrain electrification is done. That project was our biggest bookend project. It's electrifying the first 50 plus miles of electrified rail that we're going to have in California. And I know Chair Richards and Board Member Cohen and CEO Chowder, you were able to join us in San Francisco on the launch of the first train. That was back in August, but this last weekend, they have completely transitioned to electric service. So there are no more diesel trains between San Francisco and San Jose. They had a series of community events up and down the corridor celebrating this. Our teams were out at 4 of them. I think they said that our outreach team said that they talked to 1,600 people over the course of this weekend. And just the amount of excitement, I took my daughter up on the train on Sunday. Everybody's thrilled. And I really see it as really setting the foundation for us, but also getting people to understand what modern electric trains feel like. And, that's really what we have on the peninsula now. And I can't wait for us to have it across the rest of the state. So I think this might be my last update on electrification, because there's nothing more to talk about. The project is done at this point. So exciting news. Next one, please. The second project I want to talk about is the Portal project. This is the tunnel connecting from the existing rail corridor to the Salesforce Transit Center in San Francisco. It's being run by the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority. And really what we're talking about is that green line on the map. That's about 2 miles total, getting through a very dense part of San Francisco and underneath some of the streets, and then arriving in the downstairs basement portion of the transit center, which is, if you see the levels, the bottom 2 levels, they're already built out thanks to a ARA grant. The train box is ready to receive trains, but it needs to be fit out and connected to the rest of the rail corridor. And so when we talk about that project, if you go to the next slide, please. They're also moving forward as expeditiously as they can. Their recent milestones were entering what's called the engineering phase of the federal New Starts process. This is a FTA capital investment grant program. And so what that does is commits the federal share of what the project will receive, which was $3.4 billion. There was a little celebration. That's the picture that on the right there to mark this particular milestone. The project is now about 2/3 funded. And so they're looking for their last tranche of funding to be able to get to construction. But important progress being made there. They're continuing to advance their pre-construction work. So they've just completed their 30% design work. That's sort of their equivalent to our advanced design when we talk about that being our next step after environmental. And they're looking at bringing on their first progressive design build contractor for the tunnel portion in the next year or so. Next slide, please. Of course, we've been engaged with that project since its very, very inception. You know, the project is really meant to serve both us and Caltrain, getting to the Salesforce Transit Center. But we've had a series of agreements that we've gone through over the years. We first had a 6-party MOU back in 2020, and this was really focused on getting all the key stakeholders in the room together, working to advance the project to that kind of pre-construction stages and project development advancement. That MOU has now expired, but we're finalizing an updated one that will really focus on the next stages, so getting towards the construction and then ultimately to operations. And the 6 parties are up on the right, so us, Caltrain, MTC, TJPA, the County Transportation Authority, and the City and County of San Francisco there. And then we're also working on what we call a master cooperative agreement, which would be a 2-party agreement between us and TJPA, really setting out the relationship between our 2 agencies in terms of, you know, who's going to own the tunnel, how are we going to operate in it, what will be the series of arrangements between us as the project moves forward, both into construction and then ultimately into operations. That one is going to take a little bit longer to develop, so we're looking at a 25, 26 sort of timeframe on that. Next slide, please. Now, heading south, we also have another big collaborative effort in San Jose around the Diridon station. And so this one has 5 agencies involved. They're in the top right there. So us, Caltrain, San Jose, VTA, and MTC. And this project is at a much earlier stage of planning and development. So there was some original conceptual planning that was done a few years ago. At this point, it's going through a business case process, really relooking at some options and alternatives, trying to get to sort of what is the right project for the right benefits and the right costs that can justify it. And so this project, and Director Gilmetti sits on our Joint Policy Advisory Board for this, but brought forward 3 alternatives, concepts for what the elevation of the tracks could be, either elevated, at grade, or stacked. And that was back in May, narrowed that down to 2 alternatives at the August meeting, and now is going through an outreach process to really get some additional feedback on those 2 before moving forward into a pre-environmental phase and beginning the environmental process likely in 2025 on a specific project recommendation. Next slide. Here, we're also continuing our engagement on sort of the governance of this project. And so we're updating our cooperative agreement, which is, we've been operating under a series of these over the years, and really looking to delegate a little bit more authority to the steering committee that would help run the project. We still have specific functions that each of the partner agencies would be in charge of. And then we're also looking at the long-term governance and what the right structure would be for the delivery phase of the project. And how do we get that into operations? You know, it's a complex environment where we have lots of, each agency has its own important contributions to make to the equation. And we're kind of figuring out how to make all that work and fit together. Next slide. And then as we continue south to Gilroy, I'm very pleased to report that we have really upped our engagement with Gilroy, and the city has been very, very actively engaged with us, thinking about the station there. How do we think about station area planning? And so we're working with both the city and VTA. Here, we're leading a visioning study, and this is Meg and her planning team really helping us with this, as well as VTA is leading a transportation access study and really setting the foundation for the city to consider an update to their specific plan in the downtown area and the station there. We're developing an MOU to guide us on the going forward path here as well. And then one more slide, please. On wildlife issues, I think for those who were here for the San Jose to Merced project section will remember that there's a whole series of sensitive wildlife areas throughout that corridor. And we've had some really great partners that have helped us, that are very focused on the conservation side of things, but they've helped us in the design of our system and making sure that it fits with conservation effort, local conservation efforts. And so this was the Nature Conservancy, Habitat Agency, Peninsula Open Space Trust, and Open Space Authority. And we have a longstanding collaborative relationship with them during the preliminary engineering work and the design work there. And as we approved the environmental document, they asked for continued engagement with us as they advance their projects, making sure that there's good cross-pollination between sort of the transportation side and the conservation side. And so we entered into an MOU with those partners, and we kicked off a wildlife working group with them earlier this year. We're continuing to focus on kind of the different components in different areas that they all have going on. And so one to highlight for the board is there's been a lot of work advancing a overpass for wildlife movement over State Route 152 that's being led by the Habitat Agency. And they've narrowed that down to a couple different locations that they're going to be looking at. And that one's an important mitigation for us as well for our impacts as we look at the tunnels that we will ultimately need to build in that area. And then if you go to the next slide, just a few last updates about outreach and communications. As we're continuing to pursue the funding that we need to advance the project, we've wanted to make sure that we're continuing to engage with our communities. And so what we've done this year, if you go to the next slide, is we've had a fairly robust outreach program. We right now are in the middle of a series of open houses throughout the region. So we just held our first two last week in San Jose and in San Mateo County. And there's huge enthusiasm for the project that we're hearing about. The number one question that we get is, when are you going to get here? Which is always a good question. And this is our first time kind of hosting this sort of large open house kind of gathering on the project since COVID, because the last ones were probably in 2019. And so coming back out to the community, it's a very different feel, and people are really, really want to see it happen, know a lot. The people who have been following the project come with really nuanced, detailed questions because they really do study it. And then others come, to learn about it. So we have a couple more coming up, one in Gilroy, one in San Francisco next month. And, I'll be happy to report on those after those happen. Next slide. And then this is just a recap of some of our outreach activities over the last year. The numbers here are even a little bit dated because we didn't include those Caltrain events, which hit about 1,600 folks. So we've engaged with over 5,000 people in the course of last year. We've done almost close to 40 presentations, construction tours, tabling events, open house, and then the open house series. Really kind of trying to make sure that we're out in the community hearing from them and also providing updated information on where the whole statewide system lies. And then if we go to the next one, similarly on our communications side, our communications team has continued to get the message out. We've had over 500 stories in Bay Area media outlets. We've had our own social media push in collaboration with various influencers and others. And these are just some examples of the headlines that we've had. And then on the right is one of our videos. This was Nancy Pelosi down in the train box signing one of the knockout panels that got a lot of excitement in the online world. And then just yesterday, we actually had a great little event that our communications team worked with TJPA to put a decal up, kind of a 3D view into that train box to show what the trains will look like when they arrive. And so that was a fun little launch that we had yesterday for that. I think with that, that's my last slide. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Lipkin? Boris, good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Item number 3, our sustainability report with Meg Cederoth. Good morning, Meg.
Morning. So, morning, Chair Richard and members of the board. I'm Margaret Cederoth. I'm the Director of Planning and Sustainability for the Authority, and I'm really pleased to spend a little time with you today, giving you a brief summary of the Authority's annual sustainability report. Next slide. As you know, this report is in conformance with Global Reporting Initiative standards, which aligns us with peer rail organizations around the world. It is a compendium of the range of social, environmental, and governance indicators that are most important to our internal and external stakeholders to hear about when we discuss sustainability at the Authority. It also highlights progress against our signature commitments listed here. These are really a reflection of the board's leadership to supply foundational industry and public policy leading policy positions and commitments, many of which are now codified in California statute. Next slide. Our board adopted policy has always been comprehensive, and it's a reflection of actions across all of the functional areas of the Authority, as well as across all of the project delivery phases that we're looking at, from design all the way through operation. Our policy has always been to be a model of sustainable rail infrastructure. And as you'll see on the next slide, we have been putting that policy in action for more than a decade. This is quite an array of the indicators that reflect sustainability for the program. You'll see that we have meaningfully advanced sustainability issues across all of these important areas. In green on the top, you'll see what we have already have underway or have already accomplished, including offsetting all of our construction greenhouse gas emissions through a tree planting program and reforestation program, as well as the delivery of economic benefit through the delivery of the program to disadvantaged communities. And then the slide also shows in red at the bottom the potential of value that we are on track to realize as we deliver this transformative piece of California's interregional transportation network, including connecting more than 20 million Californians to high-quality, high-speed rail service, as well as deliver incredibly important reductions in greenhouse gas and climate pollutants. And the next slide. As you know, 66% of the total investment has gone to work in disadvantaged communities. As a cap and trade is our largest single source of funding for the program to date. And as a recipient of 25% of those cap and trade proceeds, we take care to make sure that the benefits of expending those funds on this program are also providing quality of life and economic opportunity benefits to California's most burdened communities now through important provision of living wage jobs to disadvantaged workers, while we are also making sure that we realize the investment of the system and how it will magnify the economy of California and for many state businesses. On the next slide, you'll see one important area is how we're using the delivery of our system to create value for the state. As President Biden noted when he awarded us $3.1 billion in December for the Merced to Bakersfield corridor, he said to think of how this train will transform California's Central Valley, and with new businesses, new residents and visitors and economic opportunities, and what it will mean for the folks who are living in inland towns and commuting to California's coastal towns. He named it a game changer. And California has embraced this project as a game changer and looks to the system to serve as an organizing principle for growth in the state. That profound objective is made real through our station area planning and station design delivery work that considers the opportunity of the functional station layouts to catalyze surrounding economic development, as well as enabling economic development, including housing, retail, commercial development, and educational or other transit-oriented development on our own parcels that provide revenue value for our enterprise in two ways: directly through this development and development ancillary revenue, as well as boosting the potential ridership by boosting the population at our station sites. On the next slide, you'll see what I refer to as the greatest hits around sustainable construction. The board has seen these slides in the past. We have pragmatically implemented our policy since the start of construction, and the results of that practical focus on clean construction has enabled us to efficiently meet the goal of zero net construction and zero net criteria air pollutant and greenhouse gas emissions in construction. We made a choice to use the cleanest available construction equipment at the time, Tier 4 for off-road equipment, as well as CARB compliant, newer, clean on-road fleets. And this allows us to reduce the amount of pollutants from construction, and the results have been consistently positive, both for the workers on our site as well as the surrounding communities. The board's leadership means that we are avoiding harmful emissions to surrounding communities now and have already offset both types of emissions so that the airshed and the global atmosphere are not seeing a burden from our project. Next slide. We have cumulatively restored more than 4,400 acres of degraded habitat. And the importance of this mitigation work is that it allows us to play our part in the state's ambitions to protect vital natural and working lands. Analysis performed in cooperation with the Department of Conservation illustrated that more than 1,600 of these acres were at risk of development, which means they are now in permanent easements. And it means that these lands remain to perform vital ecosystem services, part of the nature-based solutions in the state's climate agenda. Next slide. We have always been, since the start of construction, committed to 100% recycling of all of the concrete and steel arising from construction. That means those important commodities are returned either to our own project, reused on our own project, or recycled into the supply chain for other construction projects, rather than being thrown away. Cumulatively, we still have maintained a 95% diversion rate, meaning that all non-hazardous construction waste has been avoided from a landfill. And this is a pretty remarkable achievement for any project, and certainly for a program of our scale. Next slide. So Assembly Bill 1279 amended the Health and Safety Code to make clear that it is the policy of the state of California to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions as soon as possible, but no later than 2045, and for the transportation sector to be zero emissions by 2035. Our system is a core part of meeting that audacious policy. The richest climate mitigation promise rests with the ability of our system running at speeds of 220 miles per hour and powered by renewable energy to induce new riders attracted to travel times and to shift existing travelers out of cars and off of planes and onto our high-speed rail system. In this year's report, we did a slight adjustment to our methodology around greenhouse gas emissions to include using a capacity lens to analyze the potential of the system to deliver greenhouse gas emissions for the statewide system. In a modest scenario, the system is delivering more than 142 million metric tons of avoided carbon emissions in the first few decades of operation. This would be the equivalent of taking 670,000 cars off of our highways every year. Next slide. So I invite the board to read the sustainability report in detail. You'll see that it reflects the actions of everyone at work on the program and the hard work of all of our stakeholders in realizing the system. Next slide. Just looking ahead over the course of the year, in addition to the core work around embodied energy and other issues such as criteria air pollution, greenhouse gas emissions tracking, the team will update our climate adaptation plan to continue to advance the incorporation of climate data into the design and delivery of our infrastructure project, which is, of course, a reflection of key state requirements around climate change adaptation. We will also expand the use of zero emissions vehicles in construction through a pilot project at one of our early site activation projects in in Fresno, in the Chinatown side of our station. This is a zero emissions charging plaza in a disadvantaged community, and it's one that's flagged on our reporting to CalSTA. This aligns our construction progress with the advanced clean fleet requirements that were first signaled in Executive Order N7920, as well as our own policies discussed with the board in April of 2021. We will also progress with the procurement of renewable energy systems to supply very low-cost electricity to the operating railroad. Solar and battery storage is not only reduces our annual costs about 80%, and it also meets our board commitment to run the system on renewable energy, but it also provides a key piece of resilience and keeps our project in conformance with the Public Utilities Code, which was amended by SB 1020. On the last slide, I know we are all focusing on delivering the initial operating segment for passenger service, and we'll continue to streamline our station design to provide functional stations for the first day of service, but they will also deliver the vision and the promise of this transformative project to the millions of Californians who are very, very eager to get on our high-speed trains. I'm happy to take any questions you have on the details of the report.
Yes, Director Schmidt.
Meg, thank you as usual. Wonderful job.
Thank you.
And, the more I read the report, the more I internalize that what you do is so integral to our mission. It's really the reason why we're doing high-speed rail. So thank you for that. Just one little request,
Of course.
because this is a public document, and I know it may be fantasy to some, but hope springs eternal, and I'm still aspirational that one day we will go to San Diego and to Sacramento. So these maps that don't show either one, it just ends here at Anaheim. If we could make sure that all of our maps show that someday, maybe not in my lifetime, but someday we will be going both to San Diego and Sacramento. But congratulations, you really do a tremendous job here. And as I say, to me, it's the heart of why we're doing it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Schenck. Director Williams?
First of all, I second that request, because it would be nice to show all of California what will be possible for all of California. So aspirations, but hey, hope springs eternal. Meg, thank you. And also just want to echo the appreciation to you and your staff for, every year we get to see the great work and progress that you continue to move forward to show the other benefits of this project. I wanted to just highlight one thing that I thought was particularly impactful to me in reading both your memo and then as I read through the report. So you noted $6.6 billion invested in disadvantaged communities. And I wondered if you could just highlight that or talk about that, just what that sort of includes, because I mean, you just mentioned the charging stations that were installed, and I think when you read the report, you see the jobs created, the work that's been done. So I wanted to just clarify: is that 6.6 billion in the last year, or has that been the cumulative amount since the start of the project? And then sort of some highlights of what it includes: jobs, projects, things like the charging station, things like that.
Of course, happy to. And I know you often get a report by my colleague, Derek Boughton, who I'm gesturing at Natalie, but Derek usually comes to do the economic report frequently, which gives you a granular level of detail around some of that. But to use that disadvantaged community lens, what we carefully track is that investment overall, and then overlay the investment against the California Disadvantaged Communities data set and GIS layer, so that we understand where active construction is taking place. And then that means, of course, there's construction activity, which generates additional economic activity in the region. But we also take pains working with Katrina's team to understand who our workers are and where those workers live and what types of wages are being realized by our workers who are also residents of disadvantaged communities. What that does is aligns the project's expenditures with pretty meaningful direct benefit to those workers now, which is an important part of the cap and trade funding and the California climate investments directions. But then more broadly, we've also taken that disadvantaged community lens when we've looked at areas where we have some flexibility for how we can implement the program. So when we looked at our mitigation practices, and particularly the offset programs that we wanted to undertake in order to offset the construction emissions, we made sure that that tree planting, that urban tree planting happened in disadvantaged communities adjacent to the alignment so that they would see a benefit now associated with construction rather than just the pain of construction. And then furthermore, as we looked at, and as we continue to look at station delivery in the 4 Central Valley stations, as well as statewide, as Boris mentioned in Gilroy, as well as in the city of Palmdale, we're taking a very careful look at how we can arrange the station to benefit the surrounding communities and places where we need to install things like electric vehicle charging, and how that can, how we can accelerate that work quickly through the receipt of grants. We received a RAISE grant that I know was a reflection of the hard work of the board to get that grant in hand. That RAISE grant allows us to do early investment in Fresno, and we hope to carry out similar types of investments in other stations as well, so that electric vehicle charging and plazas that are shaded and comfortable places for people to go to now are in place as we're constructing the rest of the system.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for
Great
yes,
job.
Director Gomez?
Great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, excellent job.
Great.
Really an excellent job.
Thank you
very much, Ms. Cedroff. Thank you. He didn't have to ask for it, but our CEO has a hall pass on a CEO report this. In fact, but he's still here. He knows he can leave. At any rate, he's been here just over a week, and we'll look forward to a meaningful CEO report next month. Item number 5 is our Finance and Audit Committee report. And just very briefly for you, the information that I'll convey now is based upon the month ended July 31st. In terms of cash management, the authority at that point had close to $3.5 billion. The bulk of that, as you would well guess, is cap and trade over 3.1, Proposition 1A about 336 million. The administrative budget, I mention this because we all know the restrictions on the amount that of the percentage of our overall budget for administration. The budget was increased in the fiscal year 24-25 by 14 million up to 111 or almost 112 million for the new budget year. In the month of July, 5.7 million was expended. The capital outlay budget, in the month of July, there was 120 million expended, of which 78 million was for design build expenditures. The contract value of all the contracts that the authority has at the end of July is 13.1 billion. Plus there's POs out for about 4 million. The expenditures to date for this project from its outset to the end of July was 9.2 billion. In terms of the small business report, we're pretty flat at 23.4% year over year from the same end of month of 23. It was at 22.8. Of our small business participants, there are 852 active small businesses providing work for this project. 296 of those are disabled business entities, and 107 are disabled veterans business entities. I might break that down a bit more, as we mentioned at a previous meeting. How this breaks out is, you know, our aspirational goal, which we want to be the real goal, is 30%. For construction, it's at 22.8, and professional services is at 31.1%. In terms of contingency available for this project at the end of July, there's about 600 million in construction contingency, and other contingency not having anything to do specifically with the Central Valley portion of this project, there is just over 1 billion. In terms of labor, in July, the average number of workers on site daily was 1,547. That was up about 18 from the previous month. Utility relocations, 9 relocations were completed in the month of July. Total completed thus far, 1,395 utility relocations. In progress, another 214, and 227 have not started. The total utility relocations required for the 119 miles of the project are 1,836 utility relocations. With regards to right-of-way, you've heard this before, the requirement, we needed 2,290 parcels. We have completed 2,265 to date. There was one delivered to CP23 in the month of July. In terms of structures, 82 structures are completed or underway of a total of 93 structures required in the 119 miles. And with regards to the guideway, 92 miles of 119. In both of those last numbers, there's no change since the previous reporting period, which would have been for June. And with that, that is a summary of what the F&A committee heard just before this meeting today. Any questions or comments? Yes, Director Camacho.
You mentioned that we have a contingency of 600 and some odd million dollars. What is that being used for?
That contingency is available contingency today. It's not being used for anything. But that is contingency that had been allocated for CP 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, so if we have that amount of dollars, and we have a limit on what can be spent, that anything exceeds 25 million is supposed to come before the board.
That's right.
So that if someone were to pool money from that contingency to move it into a construction line item, then that avoids the that coming before the board, because the contingency is already approved. So
Well,
they don't need
but
double
the
approval.
utilization of the contingency at over 25 is what comes to us.
My understanding is that we've used contingency monies to supplement some of the CM contracts, as an example.
Mhm.
And those have exceeded the 25 million.
Mhm.
And how is that possible? Or is it the rationale that since contingency is approved, you don't need approval when you pull money from that contingency pool into a CM or into a construction project?
I don't mind having Natalie Daniels step up, or Daniel Horgan, but it's certainly my understanding that if there is a contingency requirement exceeding $25 million, that's got to be brought to the board. If it's less than 25, it is not brought to the board. Is that correct or not?
That is correct.
But it's subtracted from the 6.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
I think, are you
I think
raising this with the idea that if it's less than 25, or if it's, however, it might be less than 25, that it doesn't come to the board, correct? Is that what
I'm saying that even if it exceeds 25, it does not come to the board.
Yeah, it's required to come to the board.
That is correct.
The question is, has it? If it hasn't, that would be with the understanding of this chair or the members, I think, around this dais.
If there's a change order.
This might be a nice detailed topic for next F&A, but I will say that.
Well, it may
since
be a
the- if I
detailed
can,
topic.
Since the delegated
Excuse
authority
me one
to the
moment. It may be a
CEO
detailed topic for this board next time.
But since the CEO has been delegated authority
Mhm.
for any change order over, any change order, but has to report back to the board for any over 25 million, that has been reported in every F&A and every report. I honestly don't know how that impacts the contingency. I just know all those change orders have been reported to the board.
I mean, that is a bit different. Reported back is different than approved. Okay. All right. Well, I think that we can address this going forward. Yes. Director Gomati, did you want to raise? Okay. Any others? Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right. Seeing none. Ladies and gentlemen, we now have the board has a closed session. I don't expect this to last 30 minutes, roughly 30 minutes or so. At the end of that closed session, I'll come back out and report to the public whether there was any action taken by the board that needs to be brought forward. Absent that, if you would like, please stay around and we'll report out again in around 30 minutes or so. We'll move to a closed session at this point.
You look familiar.
What happened to what am I?
All right, see you, Tom.
No, and then somehow I managed to like say, maybe late or right at the nick of time. You know, everybody has a boss, mine called right at the. Very hard to get off the phone. Okay, sounds good. All right.
Whenever you're ready, Tom.
Ladies and gentlemen, the board has just finished its closed session, and we have nothing to report to the public. So with that, this meeting is adjourned. We'll see you at the next meeting.